will talk about hydrogen as cheap fuel. I will present the challenges, the opportunities, and also what we need to do to make this, especially green hydrogen, a reality in shipping. Some of you may have been aware of an accident that we actually experienced in Sandvika, very close to the DNV offices in Norway, where a refueling station that it was actually only 3 years old had a fire and a subsequent explosion. Luckily, there were no fatalities because there were no people in the proximities. However, we got some key learnings out of this accident. It was a leak, actually, the origin of the event, and the leak went undetected for 2.5 hours before it ignited. It was found out later on that 2.5, maximum 3 kilograms of hydrogen leak from one tank. And we got two key learnings. The first one is it is very important with early leak detection to be able to prevent serious events, but also that for hydrogen arrangements, it is critical the parameters such congestion and confinement. Those parameters can be hazards on its own. At a higher level, we of course can conclude that we don't want to transfer these risks on board, and we don't want to take the chances of events like this happening on board. Most of you know that hydrogen hazards are actually related to hydrogen's inherent properties and characteristics. As you can see in the graph, actually hydrogen has a higher explosion potential if we compare it with other alternative fuels that are now kind of available. If we see in the graph, the burning velocity increases, and especially, I mean, for concentrations above 15%, we can say that hydrogen's risks and explosion potential and also the detonation potential is higher than other fuels. We are trying to actually transfer technologies from land on board. And one can say like, yeah, but actually hydrogen has been used safely in land for many, many years, and why we cannot use it, or what are the risks? Actually, we can transfer the technologies, but we need to be careful because we cannot transfer all the safety barriers that are used on land. For example, sorry, on land, hydrogen is typically handled by either, say, specialists or the ones producing the hydrogen in the facilities, and they are kind of having long experience with it. On land, it is common also to have a distance from big quantities. Large quantities are separated, especially from public areas, and there are defined large safety zones for that. On board, I mean, we know that the arrangements are very compact, and this is difficult. Glass walls are also used to protect from high kind of pressures and explosions, for instance. And on board, we need to optimize the hull and keep the weight as low as possible. It's also advised on land for, especially again, big quantities, to put the installations on open air. And if we want a fuel that is competitive with other fuels, we need to have it below deck and in enclosed spaces on board. On board, we have also additional hazards that are specific to the ship application. For instance, collision and grounding, that are risks that if an event, for instance, a collision is affecting a tank with large quantities of hydrogen, then the consequences are beyond the current safety acceptance level for any other, say, ship type or risk on board. We have applications that are actually increasing the frequency and the risks of the events because of the amount of tanks and pipes and connections, for instance, with compressed hydrogen. And also the scaling effects are important. In a car, we have a tank that is typically 5 kilograms of hydrogen. On board, it can be 3,000, 4,000 kilograms, so it is different. We are implementing new solutions, such, for instance, bunkering with containerized swappable solutions that have not been proven with other fuels. We have also, I mean, unlike LNG and ammonia that have been used for decades in transportation, in shipping, we are, I mean, totally new to hydrogen when it comes to the maritime application. And the crew competence, we are not sure we will achieve at the level that is actually needed if we follow the current kind of level of training for the crews. Price is another challenge, as we know. In DNV, we have our energy transition outlook that was published this year, and actually the outlook is saying that hydrogen will achieve a cost that is competitive only in 2045. So if we compare with other technologies such solar and wind that are almost reaching a relatively competitive price now, I mean, it is different because those technologies, they were kind of developed and receiving incentives for many, many years or decades. To store hydrogen on board is also a known challenge. The volumetric efficiency of hydrogen is not the same, is not favorable in comparison to other fuels. If we have a tank with liquefied hydrogen, we need 3 times the volume of a tank with LNG, for example. But still, even if we need more volume, we see that the technologies are coming in and there is an increased interest, especially for compressed gas applications, because compressed gas is the fuel that will be available, say, easily. For liquefied hydrogen applications, it's kind of the long-term fuel, but also the interest is increasing quite a lot. So what is the way ahead with hydrogen? We need to actually rethink the safety approach, use effective leak prevention solutions for compressed hydrogen, have a goal of 0 leaks, 0 accidents, and rule out the fire scenarios using safety measures such inerted spaces, for example. Use high integrity safety systems and develop competitive, inherently safe solutions. We need to cooperate and share knowledge. We need to cooperate with industries that have the experience, for instance, aerospace. And also, in general, in the maritime industry, we need to cooperate because we see that, for instance, working in DNV is a kind of a chance to see that the technologies are being developed at the same time in different places around the world. And if kind of people cooperate, then of course we could achieve the tempo that we need to make the transition faster, and for that we need to actually cooperate. We have good tools and instruments when it comes to the regulatory framework, and those tools currently are actually sufficient for the new projects that are being pilots or demonstrators. We have the IGF code that is covering the low flashpoint fuels, including hydrogen, and having a set of goal and functional requirements that are the kind of overall safety levels that we are trying to reach with these new designs. We have already guidelines for fuel cells that are finalized at IMO and waiting for approval. And the tool that is the alternative design, that is an approval process that has been used for designs that are either having a high level of innovation and that do not comply with current prescriptive requirements, or that are not covered by current prescriptive requirements, such as hydrogen fuel. We in Norway are actually lucky to see at the moment several developments around hydrogen as ship fuel. Some are actually cooperating projects and projects that are aiming to also help for standardization and commercialization of the technologies. I would like to mention, for instance, 2 projects funded in the European Union. That is, one is eShips, that is a pre-normative research on hydrogen fuel solutions for passenger ships. So aiming to help into the regulatory development. Another one is HyShip, that is a demonstrator vessel that will run in the coast of Norway and will help not only to demonstrate that hydrogen fuel is feasible, so for that ship, but also to kind of help the development of the supply of hydrogen along the coast in Norway. So it is, and it's a partnership, so it's kind of going beyond the scope of one single unit. There are also 2 projects worth mentioning in the joint development projects list. One is Safe, and the other one is Zero Coaster. Safe is a DNV-led project that aimed to create a handbook for hydrogen fuel vessels. The handbook was actually published just before the summer. It's available online for those that are not aware of it, and it contains kind of the current state of the art of hydrogen safety for maritime applications. The project has a phase 2 that is starting now and has a kind of a big goal. Is basically to work with the current hydrogen knowledge gaps that we have, and also to try to validate the current technologies, evaluate them, and especially work with the safety measures. And at the end, the project is aiming to fit into standardization and rule development. In Norway, we have also the Zero Coaster, that is another joint development program from the green shipping program. So there are several alternatives from the government to kind of support the development. And this one is special as well because the aim is to demonstrate that zero emission fuels can be commercially available at competitive prices. So the way to do it is to explore different solutions. And for instance, modularization is one of those. And they are working, for instance, with compressed hydrogen. So again, we have seen a growing interest. In Norway, the list of new projects is long. In here, I'm showing some that are kind of ahead in the line, probably. Hydra will be the first ferry using liquefied hydrogen. We have also all the projects with compressed hydrogen and also with liquid organic hydrogen carriers. That is a kind of separate storage method that is having a different safety approach, so kind of a better safety level, but however, it has other challenges. So every solution has advantages and disadvantages. We see that these projects are mainly proposed in connection with PEM fuel cells, as PEM fuel cells are the technology that are more developed at the moment among all the fuel cell alternatives. So to summarize and to conclude, I would like to actually make emphasis on the fact that hydrogen safety is on a critical path for the decarbonization of shipping. That we need also more cost-effective, inherently safe designs to allow commercialization and standardization. And also, finally, we need to cooperate. Industry cooperation is important, and that will be the only way to make a faster transition and to reach the goal that, we all want to see green hydrogen as a fuel in shipping. Thank you for today.